Good morning. Today is May 23, 2026.
Good morning.
And, if you've been looking at the news cycle over this past week, you've probably felt that whiplash. I mean, it is just completely overwhelming right now.
Oh, absolutely. It's a lot to process.
Right. And you might be wondering, how does a mother who is like meticulously posting these trendy music synced videos of her baby on social media simultaneously orchestrate a brutal crowbar murder using a 16-year-old hitman she has literally never even met?
Yeah, it's a really terrifying juxtaposition.
It is, and that's exactly what we are here to do today. Our mission in this deep dive is to cut straight through that noise for you. We are looking at a world where the digital facade is just violently crashing into physical reality.
Right. Because we are seeing the systems we use every day to, share photos, trade digital tokens, build virtual identities. These systems are being weaponized. They're being used to bypass fundamental human morality and actually rewrite the physical economy.
Exactly. So we're taking a highly structured analytical journey through all of this today. We're going to start on the ground level with domestic society news, looking at the actual mechanics of some truly shocking events right here in Japan.
Which is crucial before we look at the macro picture.
Yeah, because from there, we'll look at the math behind those societal shifts by digging into the domestic economy. Then we have to zoom out to international affairs to see the geopolitical loops driving all of this.
Like the global context.
And finally, we will land on how Hong Kong is aggressively reinventing its entire cultural identity in response.
And what's going to become very apparent as we connect these dots for you is that whether you are looking at local street crime in Tochigi, a $1 trillion AI defense contract, or like a virtual pop star filling a stadium, you're watching the exact same phenomenon.
The same core issue.
Exactly. The boundary between what happens on a screen and what happens in the physical world has just been completely erased.
I want to start right there with those street-level consequences. Because the desperation we're seeing on the ground, it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. But the way it's manifesting is genuinely unprecedented.
Yeah, it's structurally entirely new.
The sources we've gathered this week, they document a series of events where digital trends are having these devastating, irreversible, real-world consequences. I really want to unpack the horrific incident in Kamimikawa, Tochigi.
Right. The home invasion.
Because the headline is shocking, obviously, but the mechanics of how this crime was actually built is what we really need to understand.
The Tochigi case is basically a masterclass in the darkest applications of modern digital infrastructure. It really exposes how completely frictionless the orchestration of extreme violence has become today.
Yeah, let's lay out the physical facts first, because honestly, they are brutal. A 69-year-old woman, Aiko Tomiyama, was murdered in her own home. Her two sons were severely injured by intruders wielding crowbars.
Just horrific violence.
And the attackers, they even went so far as to kill the family dog, presumably just to prevent it from barking and alerting the neighbors. It is a calculated, horrific invasion.
Right.
And the person arrested as the physical executor of this violence, a self-proclaimed 16-year-old high school student from Sagamihara.
I mean, a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
A teenager crossing prefectural lines to commit a home invasion and murder.
I struggle to wrap my head around this, a 16-year-old. But the teenager wasn't even the mastermind.
No, not at all.
The police arrested a married couple, Kaido and Miyu Takame, as the, quote, instructors or the directors of this crime. And this is where that digital disconnect becomes just staggering.
Because you look at the wife's online presence.
Right. You look at the wife, Miyu. Our sources note that on social media, she was meticulously curating this flawless, good mother facade. She's posting these trendy, happy videos with her baby.
It is the ultimate curation of a digital reality. On screen, she is projecting absolute domestic stability. But the physical reality of her life was completely different. The investigation actually revealed she was defaulting on her child's dance school tuition for months.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was that specific.
Yeah, they were drowning in financial trouble.
Huh.
And rather than face that physical reality, they used the digital world to try and violently extract wealth from someone else.
Which brings me to the actual mechanics of this. I mean, how does a married couple with a baby sitting in their home with financial debt connect with a 16-year-old high schooler to execute a home invasion? What is the user interface of this kind of crime?
Well, it operates entirely through what are known as Yamibaiko, or dark part-time job networks. These are usually hosted on highly encrypted messaging platforms like Telegram or Signal.
Right, we've heard about those.
But we really need to look beyond just the app itself and understand the psychology of the interface. These platforms fundamentally gamify crime. They strip away the visceral, bloody reality of the violence.
So is it like they view reality through a digital filter? Like ordering a hit or breaking into a house is presented as being as frictionless as ordering a delivery meal on your phone.
That is precisely the psychological mechanism at play. It relies on cognitive dissonance, which is heavily facilitated by screen distance.
Make it feel like a game, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about how the 16-year-old experiences this. They aren't recruited in a dark alley by some mob boss. They are just scrolling on their phone in their bedroom.
Right.
They see a post offering a, high-paying immediate cash job. They click a link. They get a digital prompt. The instructors, the couple, are just text bubbles on a screen to them.
So there's no human connection at all.
None. When that teenager accepts the job, they aren't visualizing a 69-year-old woman or a family dog. They are seeing a task, a series of coordinates, and a promised payout.
Wow.
The digital medium acts as a psychological buffer. It completely anesthetizes the human empathy and moral development that would normally stop a kid from picking up a crowbar.
It bypasses the brain's natural threat and morality sensors entirely. But the terrifying part is that while the setup is a digital game, the consequences are entirely physical.
Absolutely irreversible.
The digital world told this kid it was just a quick task, like a mission to clear. But the reality is a life extinguished, a family destroyed, and a 16-year-old facing the absolute destruction of their own future.
And if you are listening to this right now, whether you're a parent, an educator, or just someone trying to understand how society is shifting, the crucial takeaway here isn't just that criminals are using apps.
Right. It's bigger than that.
It's that the user interface of the platforms we use every single day has been weaponized to recruit the vulnerable. The architecture of these dark part-time jobs is explicitly designed to make the youth on the ground the disposable asset.
The fall guy.
Exactly. The instructors hide behind encryption and proxy servers, while the teenager takes the physical and legal fall. The promise of quick cash is just a fleeting digital delusion. There is no reset button in the physical world. A criminal record, a fatal mistake, these things are permanent.
Yeah, there are no respawns in real life. And that digital delusion, that prioritization of the screen over reality, it isn't just driving violent crime. We are seeing it drive completely surreal, irrational behavior simply for the sake of digital clout.
Oh, absolutely. The cloud chasing is getting out of hand.
I really want to look at the bizarre incident that happened at the Ichikawa City Botanical and Zoological Gardens.
The zoo incident is a perfect, albeit deeply frustrating case study in the modern cloud economy, just completely overriding basic human common sense.
Okay, let's set the scene for the listeners. You have this famous, beloved baby macaque monkey at the zoo named Punch. Punch is known for clinging to an orangutan teddy bear because he was separated from his mother.
It's a very viral, heartwarming story, lovely.
Super cute. Then a group of foreign influencers from a meme coin community show up, and they are wearing these oversized yellow emoji masks.
Already absurd.
Totally. They bypass the barriers and literally breach the macaque enclosure. They illegally jump right into the monkey mountain.
And we have to examine their stated motive here, because it highlights exactly how distorted this worldview actually is.
They claim they just wanted to give a new teddy bear to Punch. That was their physical justification for trespassing and terrifying a troop of wild animals.
Right, which is just insane.
They were, thankfully, arrested for obstruction of business. But I struggle to wrap my head around this. I mean, I get wanting views, I get wanting to promote a digital token. But jumping into a monkey enclosure...
Yeah, it's a wild animal.
At a certain point, basic self-preservation and awareness of physical laws have to kick in, right? How does a digital token override human survival instincts and legal boundaries so completely?
Well, because to them, the zoo wasn't a physical place with living animals and legal jurisdictions. The physical zoo was merely a soundstage for their digital performance.
Wow, just a backdrop.
You really have to understand how the Ming coin economy works. The value of a Ming coin is entirely untethered from any underlying physical asset or corporate earnings.
It's just hype.
Exactly. Its value is 100% driven by attention, hype, and virality. So these influencers weren't seeing monkeys, they were seeing props. They needed a viral video to pump the value of their coin to their community.
So the physical reality of the zoo was just raw material to be harvested for digital clout.
Exactly.
And the delusion continued even after they were in police custody. The sources note that the community behind these influencers sent a direct message, a DM, offering a 1 million yen donation to the zoo.
A bribe, basically.
Yeah, they were effectively trying to buy their way out of a criminal act, framing it as just a simple misunderstanding of local laws. It's the ultimate gamification of life. You break the rules, you trigger an alert, so you just offer to pay a 1 million yen microtransaction to clear your wanted level and expect the game to let you keep playing.
Exactly. They assume the physical world operates with the same frictionless mechanics as a blockchain transaction. But reality doesn't work that way.
Obviously not.
The physical safety of the animals, the stress caused to the zoo staff, the literal violation of the law, those are physical realities that cannot be erased with a digital token transfer.
Right.
And this disconnect, this aggressive friction between ideological or digital beliefs and physical legal reality is currently flashing red across all layers of Japanese society.
Which brings us to a series of other major friction points documented in our sources this week. And before we dive into these specific events, we need to be incredibly clear with you, the listener.
Yes, very important point here.
The sources we are pulling from outline some highly charged, ongoing political and ideological conflicts.
Yep.
We are not taking any sides here. We are not endorsing any viewpoints, left or right.
We're just looking at the mechanics.
Exactly. We're simply acting as your analytical guides, impartially unpacking the facts contained in the source material to illustrate just how tense the physical public square has become.
An objective, mechanical view of these events is absolutely crucial. We are observing how ideological battles are manifesting in physical spaces.
Right. So let's look at Tokyo University first. They had to abruptly cancel the first day of their famous Gogatsusai, the May Festival. This is a massive, historic cultural event.
Huge attendance, usually.
Thousands of people. Why was it shut down? Because the university received a bomb threat specifically targeting a scheduled speech by Sanseido leader Sohei Kamiya.
This is the physical manifestation of political polarization. You have a digital threat, an anonymous email or a message that holds enough weight to completely shut down a massive physical gathering of thousands of people.
Wow.
The digital threat successfully paralyzed the physical public square.
And this friction isn't isolated to the capital either. Down in Okinawa, we saw a historic administrative ruling.
Right, the MEX2 ruling.
Yeah, the MEX2 minister, the Minister of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology, ruled that a tour of the Hanoko-based construction site by students from Doshisha International High School violated the Basic Act on Education.
Which is a huge deal.
Specifically, they said it violated the strict ban on political activity within educational frameworks.
This is a highly significant ruling. It is actually the first time such a judgment has been made since the act was established.
Really?
Yeah. It highlights the intense, microscopic scrutiny on how political and geopolitical issues are engaged with in the physical world, especially when it involves students.
The boundary of what constitutes education versus what constitutes political activity is just being fiercely contested right now.
Exactly.
Furthermore, staying right there in Hanoko, the physical protests are resulting in severe legal consequences. The captain of a protest boat named Fukutsu, which tragically capsized and resulted in deaths, is now facing criminal charges from the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport, and Tourism.
Yes, for violating the Marine Transportation Act.
Again, looking at this neutrally, we are seeing that whether it's a university festival in Tokyo, a high school field trip, or a marine protest in Okinawa, the physical world has become a highly contested, legally fraught battleground.
And what we really need to understand is that all of this societal tension, the ideological battles, the anxiety, the desperate financial measures we saw in the Tsuchigi Dark part-time job case, none of this exists in a vacuum.
Right, it's all connected.
It is deeply connected to and severely exacerbated by the crushing macroeconomic realities facing Japan right now. Desperation is a downstream effect of financial pressure.
So let's look at the math behind this desperation. We're moving into domestic economy now. The macro pressures right now are not just bad, they are historic. We're looking at what analysts in our sources are calling the triple low.
The triple low is a brutal, compounding confluence of metrics that is essentially putting the Japanese domestic economy in an absolute vice grip.
Let me break down these numbers for you, because if you haven't checked the markets, this is going to sound alarming. The yen has plummeted to 158.8 to the US dollar.
Which is incredibly weak.
And the 10-year Japanese government bond yield, the JGB yield, has spiked to 2.8%. To put that into historical context, that is roughly a 29.5-year high.
Almost 3 decades.
Yeah. And as a direct result of these pressures, the Nikkei has dropped, falling below the critical 60,000 mark.
We really have to unpack the mechanics of why this is happening.
Mhm.
The Bank of Japan is caught in an incredibly difficult, almost impossible position right now.
Right, because I think to anyone with a standard credit card, an interest rate of 2.8% sounds incredibly low.
Sure, comparatively.
So why is a 2.8% yield causing the stock market to plummet and creating such massive panic?
It's all about financial gravity. For decades, the Japanese economy operated with zero or even negative gravity, meaning the Bank of Japan kept interest rates essentially at zero. Money was practically free to borrow.
Right, free money.
Entire corporate structures, massive real estate markets, and frankly, zombie companies were built on the fundamental assumption that capital would always be free.
Wow.
But now, with global inflation surging, the Bank of Japan is being forced to normalize rates. When you suddenly turn the gravity up to 2.8%, massive corporate structures that relied on free money start to literally collapse under their own debt weight.
Oh, I see.
The cost of borrowing money becomes exponentially more expensive for everything from massive corporate loans to the standard residential mortgage.
But wait, basic economics says that if a central bank raises interest rates, it's supposed to attract capital and strengthen the currency.
That's the textbook theory, yes.
So if the BOJ is raising rates to 2.8%, why is the yen still crashing to 158.8 against the dollar? That doesn't seem to make sense.
Think of global capital as water and interest rates as gravity.
Okay.
If the Bank of Japan raises rates to 2.8%, they are digging a small trench to catch some water. But if the United States Federal Reserve is holding their rates much, much higher, over 5%, they have dug a massive canyon.
Oh, so the wadi just flows to the bigger hole.
Capital naturally, completely frictionlessly flows downhill to where the returns are highest. Global investors look at a 2.8% return in Japan versus a 5% return in the U.S., and they make the obvious choice. They sell their yen, they buy U.S. dollars, and all that capital just drains across the Pacific. That massive sell-off leaves the yen completely parched, driving its value down to 158.8.
And the physical consequence of that weak yen on the ground in Japan is devastating because Japan imports almost all of its essential physical goods, energy, oil, food.
Right. Everything gets more expensive.
When the yen is weak, buying those necessities on the global market becomes devastatingly expensive. This creates severe, crushing inflation at the grocery store level.
Everyday inflation.
Which brings us to the political response. Because the government is seeing this pain on the ground, and Prime Minister Sana Takaichi has stepped in with a pretty radical proposal.
Yes, the zero tax bill.
She has promised to submit a bill to temporarily eliminate the consumption tax on food and drinks entirely for 2 years.
This proposal perfectly highlights the profound systemic friction between monetary policy and fiscal policy happening right now.
How so?
Well, on one side, you have the Bank of Japan trying to tighten the money supply by allowing bond yields to rise, trying to cool things down.
Right.
But on the exact other side, the government is looking at the voters and essentially saying the imported inflation is squeezing citizens so hard they can't afford to eat. We have to intervene fiscally by wiping out the grocery tax just to provide immediate life support.
It's a massive macroeconomic tug of war.
Exactly.
But here is where the picture gets really distorted and frankly a bit surreal. The government is proposing desperate measures to save citizens from starving due to grocery inflation. But at the exact same time, our sources show that the Japanese corporate sector, specifically tech and global players, is experiencing an unprecedented explosive boom.
It's a tale of two economies.
The divide between the winners and losers right now is staggering.
It is corporate polarization on a historic scale. The companies that are positioned correctly are surfing these macro waves to incredible heights.
Look at the winners. Toshiba just reported a net profit of 1.96 trillion yen. That is almost 7 times their previous record.
Trillion, with a T.
Recruit Holdings expects a record 623 billion yen profit. Hankyu Hanshin Holdings posted record profits of 78.5 billion yen. How are they pulling these numbers in this environment?
Because they have effectively decoupled from the domestic yen economy.
What do you mean?
Let's look at Recruit Holdings. They are driving that 623 billion yen profit almost entirely through their U.S.-based job site, Indeed, which, by the way, heavily utilizes AI matching.
Oh, right. Indeed is huge in the U.S.
Because Indeed operates in the U.S., it generates revenue in strong U.S. dollars. When Recruit brings those strong dollars back to Japan and converts them into the incredibly weak yen, they experience a massive currency arbitrage advantage.
Wow.
They're literally profiting off the weakness of their own home currency.
And Toshiba, 1.96 trillion yen is astronomical.
The chief is benefiting massively from the global physical infrastructure boom required for AI, specifically the surging value of Kioxia, their memory chip business.
Ah, hardware.
Right. You cannot build digital AI without physical memory chips.
Yeah.
They're basically selling the physical shovels in the global AI gold rush.
And Henki Hunshin.
They're riding the massive localized wave of infrastructure and real estate development leading up to the expo.
But then you have the companies that stumble. Look at Sony Financial Group. While the tech sector is minting trillions, Sony Financial is projecting a 16 billion yen deficit.
A huge hit.
But the sources note this isn't because of macro trends. It's because of a massive financial fraud committed by a single life insurance employee.
Just one employee.
Yeah, this internal failure is forcing the company to investigate all 2.8 million of their customers.
It perfectly illustrates how unforgiving the current environment actually is. The market has absolutely zero tolerance for friction.
Right.
If you are positioned in global AI infrastructure or you are earning strong US dollars, you are posting trillion yen profits.
Right.
But if you suffer an internal governance failure, the market punishes you severely, wiping out billions in value instantly.
So we have record-breaking trillion yen profits in the tech sector, while the average person is getting squeezed so hard the Prime Minister wants to enact a zero tax on groceries.
It's jarring.
To truly understand why this gap exists, we have to look outside of Japan entirely. Because Japan's domestic economic whiplash is actually entirely downstream of massive tectonic shifts in global geopolitics and United States monetary policy.
Exactly. If you want to understand why your groceries in Tokyo are so expensive, you have to look at Washington, D.C., and you have to look at global supply chains.
Let's zoom out to international affairs then. Because the absolute catalyst for the yen's collapse and the resulting inflation in Japan is sitting in the Federal Reserve. Specifically, the appointment of Kevin Warsh as the 17th Federal Reserve Chairman, replacing Jerome Powell.
Warsh's policy posture is the engine driving this entire global macro loop.
Our sources note that Warsh has taken a deeply hawkish, higher-for-longer stance. He is aggressively fighting U.S. domestic inflation, and he isn't backing down at all.
He's fully committed.
Under his leadership, the U.S. 10-year yield has been pushed to 4.67%, and the 30-year yield is sitting at a staggering 5.18%.
And going back to our water and gravity analogy, that 5.18% yield is the massive canyon draining capital out of Japan.
Right.
Why would any global institutional investor hold a Japanese bond yielding 2.8% when they can hold a U.S. government-backed bond yielding over 5%?
They wouldn't. It's a no-brainer.
Exactly. So they dumped the yen. Warsh's relentless fight to crush inflation within the borders of the United States is effectively exporting massive inflation directly into the Japanese economy.
But we have to ask why Warsh is forced to keep rates so high. Why is U.S. inflation so stubborn in the first place? And that leads us out of the realm of digital finance and back into the physical, gritty reality of the globe, geopolitical instability and the Middle East.
You cannot separate digital finance from physical commodities. The global economy runs on energy.
Oil.
Exactly. Tensions and conflicts in the Middle East are keeping oil prices dangerously high. Shipping lanes are being physically disrupted.
In fact, the sources specifically note that reserve oil from the UAE is currently having to arrive in Japan just to stabilize the physical energy supplies.
So let's trace the causal loop here, because it is fascinating and terrifying at the same time.
Let's do it.
Geopolitical conflict in the Middle East disrupts physical oil routes. That makes global energy expensive. Expensive energy drives up the cost of manufacturing and transporting everything, which creates inflation in the United States.
Okay, following.
To fight that U.S. inflation, Kevin Warsh at the Fed raises interest rates to over 5%. Those high U.S. rates drain capital out of Japan, crushing the value of the yen.
Wow.
And crushed yen means that when Japan goes to buy that already expensive Middle Eastern oil, it costs them a fortune, leading to the Prime Minister proposing a zero tax on your groceries just so you can survive.
It is a perfect, inescapable causal loop.
And that loop is now fundamentally altering how nations view their own survival, because protecting those physical supply chains and that economic stability is no longer just a matter of traditional military defense.
Right, it's evolving.
It has become a matter of absolute tech supremacy.
We are seeing the militarization of AI happening in real time. Let's look at how defense is evolving here. On the traditional physical side, Our sources note the U.S. and Japan are conducting the Resolute Dragon military drills.
Traditional joint exercises.
Yeah, they are bringing Osprey transport aircraft to Miyakojima for the first time. This is a very physical, traditional signaling of defense posture in the geopolitical sphere. I mean, you can physically touch an Osprey.
But physical hardware is no longer enough. The battlefield has completely expanded into the digital infrastructure that controls the physical hardware.
Which is why, at the exact same time as those physical drills, the ruling party in Japan is proposing a massive cyber defense corporate alliance.
This is huge.
And who is considering joining this national defense alliance? Anthropic, the American AI giant, offering to integrate their advanced AI model, Claude Mythos.
This is a monumental, paradigm-shifting development. Think about what this actually means. National defense is no longer just the exclusive domain of the Pentagon or the Ministry of Defense.
Right, it's privatized now.
Sovereign defense now relies directly on the intellectual property of private, venture-backed tech corporations.
It's wild to think about.
Anthropic's Claude Mythos,
Mm-hmm.
an AI model capable of recognizing microscopic anomalies in network traffic, predicting cyber attacks, and automating defensive coding, is essentially being viewed as a piece of critical national defense infrastructure.
Right, alongside fighter jets and aircraft carriers.
Exactly. Cyber supremacy is now the absolute prerequisite for physical defense. You simply cannot defend a physical border if an adversary can turn off your power grid digitally.
And speaking of private tech companies acting like sovereign entities, look at Elon Musk's SpaceX.
Oh, yeah.
The sources note they are eyeing a historic IPO on the NASDAQ, and the valuation, a mind-boggling $1.75 trillion.
A single private space company valued at nearly $2 trillion.
Yeah.
It underscores exactly where global capital is concentrating right now.
Capital is flooding into the entities that control the physical infrastructure of the digital world.
Right, because SpaceX isn't just launching rockets. They own Starlink.
Oh, the internet satellites.
They own the constellation of low Earth orbit satellites that provides global internet connectivity. They physically control the data pipes in the sky.
Wow.
If you control the satellites, you control the communications layer that the military, the financial markets, and AI systems all rely on. SpaceX basically provides the physical layer required for digital supremacy.
And when a private company controls that layer, their IPO valuation dwarfs the GDP of many nations. It is the ultimate consolidation of power at the intersection of the physical and the digital.
It really is.
Okay, so we've looked at Japan getting squeezed by U.S. inflation, the breakdown of street-level morality via apps, and the privatization of national defense through AI and satellites. It paints a pretty intense, almost bleak picture of the global macro environment.
It's definitely a tough landscape.
But, and this is where I want to shift gears, there is an incredibly fascinating counter-narrative happening in our final section today.
Oh, Hong Kong.
Yes. While some nations are just trying to survive the whiplash, another region is aggressively adapting to it. Let's look at Hong Kong.
Hong Kong's response to these exact same global pressures is basically a masterclass in strategic reinvention. Instead of just absorbing the macroeconomic shocks, they're actively disassembling and reinventing their core economic identity.
Let's start with the hard economic realities on the ground there, because it's kind of a mixed bag. On one hand, Hong Kong's Q1 GDP actually grew by a very robust 5.9% year over year.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, in this global environment, almost 6% growth is a massive number. But beneath that headline number, the government is facing a severe budget deficit. And their response is a pretty brutal consolidation plan. They're cutting 10,000 civil servant positions and halting pay rises across the board.
It's a classic painful fiscal tightening. They recognize that the era of easy money is over, and they are trimming the physical bureaucracy.
Right.
But what is truly critical is what they are doing with the capital they are saving from those cuts. They aren't just hoarding it to balance the books. They are strategically deploying it to build entirely new economic engines.
They're shifting away from their historical reliance on traditional finance and real estate.
Exactly.
Despite cutting 10,000 jobs, they are simultaneously investing 1 billion Hong Kong dollars into a brand new AI research and development institute.
Doubling down on the future.
Right. They are plowing capital into advancing the massive Northern Metropolis Urban Development Plan. And acknowledging the geopolitical supply chain shocks we just discussed, they are rolling out the SME Protect Plus Export Support Scheme to help small and medium enterprises physically survive the turbulence.
They're actively trying to build structural resilience. But the most interesting and potentially most lucrative pivot isn't just in AI tech or urban infrastructure.
What is it?
It is a massive pivot into culture and intellectual property.
I-
Hong Kong is making a deliberate, highly engineered play to become the dominant Asian hub for IP.
And this brings us to the absolute centerpiece of this cultural pivot, an event called ConCon Hong Kong 2026, taking place at the massive Asia World Expo.
This is fascinating.
When I was reading through our sources on this, my jaw dropped. This isn't just a Comic-Con where people go to buy keychains and posters. This is a massive cross-cultural mega event designed to generate serious economic gravity.
It is the strategic deployment of cultural soft power to generate hard economic capital.
The tagline of the event alone tells you their strategy. Mixing is our DNA. They are deliberately blending globally renowned Japanese anime IP with Hong Kong's local creative scene.
It's brilliant.
But it's the sheer scale of the execution. They have a massive integrated music festival attached to it called Mix Some Music. You have absolute legends from the Japanese music scene, Yoko Takahashi, the iconic voice of Evangelion.
Iconic.
You have Flo, Do As Infinity, Maki Oguro, and Miyavi. And they are sharing the main stage with Hong Kong's biggest current superstars like Mirror's Anson Kong and Tyson Yoshi.
By engineering this specific lineup, Hong Kong is positioning itself as the literal connective tissue of Asian pop culture. They aren't just passively importing Japanese culture. They are providing the global physical stage where these massive IPs can interact with international capital, global media, and localized fan bases. They are becoming the cultural broker for the entire region.
And it gets even more futuristic because it's not just physical artists driving this economy. The event marks a historic moment in virtual entertainment.
The VTuber integration.
Yes, the globally renowned independent VTuber Unnamed, known to fans affectionately as Yusan, is making a highly anticipated comeback after an indefinite hiatus due to vocal issues.
And they aren't just streaming this comeback from a bedroom setup on a monitor in the corner somewhere.
No, Unnamed is doing a full 3D live performance backed by a live band on the main festival stage right alongside the physical rock stars.
This is a watershed moment for the global IP economy. I really want listeners to understand the mechanics of this. We are talking about a virtual avatar powered by digital motion capture technology and software, commanding a physical stadium stage and generating massive real-world ticket sales, merchandise revenue, and tourism capital.
It's incredible. Add to that, the sources note they are hosting the first ever Hong Kong special screening of Hall of English's third concert, All for One. It's an absolute unapologetic convergence of digital idols and physical fans spending real money.
If we connect this back to the overarching theme of our deep dive today, the contrast is just incredible. Think back to the foreign influencers at the Ichikawa Zoo.
The meme coin guys.
Right. They use the physical world, the monkey enclosure, poorly and illegally just to farm digital clout. But Hong Kong is doing the exact opposite.
How so?
Hong Kong is taking immense digital clout anime IPs, globally recognized VTubers, digital idols, and anchoring it in their physical reality, their real estate, their stadiums to generate immense physical economic capital. They are successfully monetizing the collision of the physical and digital worlds.
It really is brilliant. They are essentially looking at the global landscape and saying, if the entire world is moving toward digital IP and virtual assets, we will build the premier physical port where all that digital cargo gets traded, celebrated, and monetized.
Precisely. It is a survival strategy. By becoming the cultural and IP hub, they secure their economic relevance in a post-traditional finance world. They're basically building a new pillar for their GDP out of holograms and anime.
Wow. Okay, we have covered an immense amount of ground today, and I want to synthesize this journey for you, the listener, because the through line is undeniable.
It really is all connected.
We started on the streets of Tochigi and Chiba, looking at the dark side of this collision. We saw the tragic, violent, real-world consequences when the digital gamification of life through encrypted apps or meme coin clout chasing strips away human empathy, moral development, and basic common sense.
Right. We then traced the financial desperation driving those street-level acts up to the macroeconomic level.
The triple up.
Exactly. We examine the math behind the pain, looking at how the U.S. Federal Reserve's fight against domestic inflation is acting like a giant vacuum, draining capital and exporting crushing currency pressures to Japan. This dynamic is forcing a historic triple low and creating a massive, terrifying divide between tech corporations posting trillion-yen profits and everyday citizens who are struggling just to buy groceries.
And we saw how that corporate tech boom is inextricably linked to global geopolitics, with AI models like Anthropic's Claude Mythos now sitting at the table of national defense, fundamentally privatizing cyber supremacy.
It's a completely new paradigm.
And finally, we saw Hong Kong's aggressive, brilliant adaptation to this exact new reality, cutting physical bureaucracy to invest in AI and pivoting their entire economy to become the cultural, VTuber, and digital IP hub of Asia. It really is all connected. The physical and the digital are no longer separate spheres. They are one violently churning engine.
They really are. And seeing how interconnected these forces are leaves us with a final lingering question to ponder as we all navigate this new era.
What's that?
Well, today we've seen how a digital interface can anesthetize a teenager's morality and drive them to real-world violence. But we've also seen how virtual idols can drive an entire city's economic reinvention. As the line between our physical reality and our digital avatars continues to blur entirely, we have to ask ourselves on an individual level, are we actively using the digital world to enhance and build our physical reality? Or are we passively letting the digital interface completely overwrite our human morality and common sense?
A heavy but absolutely necessary thought to carry forward. Thank you for joining us on this custom-tailored deep dive. We hope we helped cut through the noise and decode the mechanics of this week's news for you.
Thanks for listening.
Remember to stay curious, keep questioning the mechanics behind the headlines, and think critically about the digital filters through which you view the world. Until next time.